All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Rev It Up here at the 64th Annual World of Wheels in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And as you know, we've been doing a live broadcast and recording all weekend long with the winners and the Riddler cars and the Grade 8s and, I mean, just all kinds of stuff and all the great cars here. So one of the cars that really caught us off guard, and Mikey brought it up, of course, because he's a Ford guy, was this beautiful 69 Ford Mach 1 Mustang with a overhead cam 427 in it. And we really liked it, and it was owned here by our guest here today. Thanks for being on the show. Is Regis Sylvester.
Thank you very much.
So the Canary Yellow Mustang. So we talked a little bit about the build. So what can you tell us about it, and how did you get started on it?
Well, we started on this car maybe 10, 12 years ago, and it was about the engine initially. You know, I read an article in Hot Rod Magazine, and it was a really good technical piece and somebody who knew a lot about these engines. And I thought, man, that would be fun if we could build one of these things. And so I started looking into, learning about them. And, it's Ford FE stuff. And then, you have to get the cylinder heads, which is the tricky thing. So once you, figure that out, you're on your way. The parts are available in the aftermarket. And so I spent about 3 years, gathering up parts and, put an engine together.
So the first part was the engine. That was your first part of the piece of the puzzle, I guess, of the build.
No, we had the engine sitting on an engine stand, and now what do we do with it? And we talked about a number of different cars that we could put it in, and 65 Mercury Cyclone, but try and find one. Yeah. And so in the end, we picked the Mustang because you can pretty much build one out of the catalog. There's lots of them around, and we had to chop it up pretty good to get that engine in there. So nobody was going to be too upset about this car, being sacrificed.
That's true. Now, one thing, going back to the motor of the build, the 427, one thing you pretty much told me that now this goes back to the Trans Am Road Race series. That's how this all started with the overhead camera and in Ford when they came out to compete with the Mopar.
That's right.
And the Hemi.
Yep. 1964, Chrysler showed up with that Hemi and just laid waste to the competition. And, Ford, they want to sell cars on Monday morning and they got to win races on the weekend. So they needed a drastic solution. And so enter this camera engine. And apparently, I think they developed and put the first prototypes 3 months. And they had a running engine and they were ready to go.
And that was 64.
That was 64 into 65 by then, I would think.
Okay. Yep. But now you were telling me before, because I asked before, and these were never offered over the market or in a car. They were buy from the dealership. This is only a race motor, only over the counter.
That's right. They had built enough of them to homologate Ford Fairlanes so they would be able to compete in NASCAR. NASCAR said, nope, you're not running that thing. Mopar complained about the overhead cam. And so they were stuck with all these engines they'd built and weren't going to be allowed to race them. They sold them over the back parts counter. Drag racers bought them, speed boats, they were just sold over the back parts counter and they disappeared.
So now today, we're talking 60 years later. What did you say? I think we were talking before. If you can find an original 64 to 65 over the counter 427, what's the price tag on? We were talking before.
Yeah, it was funny. This year we saw one on Bring a Trailer, and it original Holman Moody crate engine. All the paperwork and everything with it, and on Bring a Trailer, and I think it went for $130,000.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty.
What do you think they gave them away for back in 64 and 5 over the counter?
$1,200. It would have been cheap.
So now you got the motor. Now you got the and you decide right away that you want to race the car, or you just with the motor, right?
We knew we were going to build a performance vehicle, and a lot of people that had these engines drag raced them, and we thought, well, maybe we should actually build a road course race car rather than a drag race car, because as the better a drag race car you build, the less drivable it is on the street.
100%.
So whereas you build a road race car, well, now all of a sudden you got something with better brakes and better handling and, all these things that make it a really great street car. So that was sort of, what we were going with.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So tell me about the body. Tell me about the car. You told me a little bit about before the 69 to 70 clash here, and how did you come up with the Mustang collaboration?
Well, we looked at Mustangs, and that was the parts availability is really kind of what we wanted. And it would have been kind of neat to do a 67 Mustang, but the Ford guys, I think, would have killed us if we had taken a pretty nice Mustang and a 67 and chopped it up like that. So we went with a 69 and went looking for one, and I found one in town, and it had been imported into Canada from Northern California, and it was a rough car, and we didn't pay a lot of money for it, and that's where we started.
Okay. And then once you get the car in there, obviously you want to go racing. That's what was your big? You want to be a performance car. So did you know right away they're going to put a full chassis underneath it and full race chassis, or how did you start getting that extreme?
Well, that's a good question. In my mind, we were going to build a front clip and bolt the engine to that, and then somehow tie it to the unibody, and then build a rear clip and get the diff in, and then join them together. And our chassis builder, who's worked on other projects that we've had, he says, "Reg, why don't we just build a chassis?" And it's like, can we do that? Like, is that something that we could really do? He says, well, what you're talking about, it's going to cost a lot of money. And so, it's never as good. And he says, if we just decide we're going to build a chassis, we'll get a way better result. And this is what he did for a living. And so, okay, well, let's do that then. And so it was actually exciting that, holy cow, we're going to build a tube chassis car versus, something with a front clip and a rear clip bolted together, and, a rusty old car in the middle.
Yeah. And I mean, you got a passion for doing this later on in life. I mean, for doing this stuff. So you've been a racer and a drag racer for some time, right?
Well, I've started drag racing maybe 25 years ago. So maybe I was, I'm dating myself. I was 40. But you know what? Until then, I was working.
Okay,
I didn't have time for playing with cars. I was working. I had stuff to do. Oh, yeah. And so then, so when I turned 40, I started racing this old Trans Am I had that I bought new, and I thought, it was fun. I mean, I remember the first pass I made down the track. I was hyperventilating so bad I could hardly breathe. And my first pass in my Trans Am was a 1588 at 92 miles an hour. I thought I was John Force. It was awesome. And I was hooked.
1.25 mile first.
Yeah. That was a quarter mile, yeah. So I was hooked. I was there. So we worked on that car for quite a few years. And, this is, you keep moving forward with this project, with this hobby.
Yeah. So when you started, whereabouts was the car located by you somewhere? Did you find it locally?
Yeah, found it locally.
Okay.
Yeah. Found it on Kijiji, and for sale, one Mustang.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did you start deciding colors and what you want to do then, the stance and wheels? And
well, I had a really good picture in my mind how a road course prepped Mustang should look. Mm-hmm. And what you see out there today on the showroom floor is exactly what I had in mind. And I know our builder and our body shop guy, they've actually said to me after the fact, Reggie, you never backed up on this thing. You always had it clear in your mind what you wanted, and we never had to redo anything because, somebody, you hemmed or hawed about, well, maybe we should do this instead. It is, this is the way I saw the car from the beginning.
Right. And, going back all the way through, I'm kind of going through I guess we called it our judge's handbook, right? Is that what you call this?
Judge's handbook.
Your build and just the amazing stuff that you guys did and put together, and everything with the build and the motor. Now, the block is all aluminum block, huh?
Yeah, it's a Robert Pond block, and we bought it from Robert, and he's in California, and all aluminum block with cast iron sleeves, and you can bore them to a maximum of 4.310. So, of course, we went to 4.310 right off the bat. Yeah.
And with this thing, everything you've done to it, I'm looking at the specs. So That's 765 horsepower and 575 foot-pounds of torque
Yeah, on the engine dyno.
on the
Yeah.
engine dyno. So,
Yeah.
and you just told me before, right now we're in the show circuit. You just introduced it, so you really haven't done it. So there's only about 8 or 9 miles on the car.
Yeah, there's 9 miles on the car, and I think that it's actually 13 kilometers. I did the conversion. I think it's pretty close to 9 miles, but yeah, it's and those were on the jack stands, and we're just checking the transmission, the way it shifts, and we make sure it backs up and whatnot, and we've driven it indoors at these shows a little bit, but I mean that's a mile and a half an hour, so not
yeah,
all that.
for sure.
Yeah.
So nobody's ever really taken out for a ride and got
Not
through the
yet.
gears or nothing.
No. We actually had to cut all the little nubbles off of the tires to before we put it in the show. Like,
Oh, really?
We never wore them off. We had to cut them off. Yeah.
So going to their wheels and tires. I love the wheels and tires on this thing. They're unbelievably.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think they fit the build and the look of the car, and they have a knockoff look about the
It looks
wheels.
like the '60s racer,
Yeah,
Trans Am series for sure.
Absolutely, and that's what we were going for, and it was sort of Ford stuff too.
Yeah.
That and that was something that was important with the build. If we were going to put some modified part on it, maybe it should have some Ford history to it. That maybe it could have been built like that, and that's always kind of was the goal, to make the car look like, holy cow, Ford built this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, as far as the body work and the actual build, who is all involved in this?
All these cars, you require a team. There's so much work. And so we had a fabricator, Derek Roshak, and he builds race cars and does incredible work, outfitting race cars with cages and stuff like that. And he's got an industrial business as well, working for the oil service industry. We had a body shop, was Classic Auto Body in Olds, Alberta, and we had Rob Robson do all the paint on it, and Rolly was our bodyman who had retired, and Rob says to him, "Rolly, you got to come back for one more." And so Rolly, he'd been retired for like 2 weeks, and then he was back in the shop building our car. So yeah, those guys did a really good job, and we had Graham Cannon did the interior in the car, and we had Dominion Auto Glass do all the glass in the car. So it's like, you need these people, because I'm just not going to live long enough to get all those skills.
Yeah.
I can't do all that stuff.
That's true. Very true.
I was in charge of running brake lines and plumbing and doing stuff that I can do, but I'm not a guy that's going to build a chassis.
Yeah, the chassis, the build on it. I mean, the list that I'm going through with everything that you have with the Penske coilovers and just everything. I mean, the chassis is all double railed, it's all chrome moly. I mean, that's an unbelievable setup that you have here. I mean, this is definitely set up for road racing. Right
No,
now.
it's a race car.
It's a race car.
Yeah, no, we said it's got to be a race car. We want it to be pretty, but job one, build a race car.
Who picked out the color?
The color was something my wife and I both sort of agreed on. I think Stephanie had quite a bit of input in that and ultimately made the final decision on it. But I knew it was going to be a yellow car, but anybody that's tried to pick a yellow car and what it's going to be, it can't look like a school bus, but that would be a yellow car. So, you have to, it's tricky to get the right color and not have it look like everybody else's yellow car.
Now, I'm looking at the pictures on here where it goes to the body and the chassis, what we have going on, the rest of the chassis built here. Now, this thing is a complete skeleton of a NASCAR. I mean, a road race car, I'm sorry.
It's got full skeleton, and the chassis was drivable, and which was really an odd thing to see, but you could fire up the engine and drive the chassis around, the brakes, everything worked, and it was odd looking, to say the least, but in our mind, we knew we had the body in the body shop, and it was coming along, sort of independently of the chassis.
I like all the little notes and little things that you have in the book here, for people to go through, because once you have the hood closed, there's a lot of things on it that look different to you, but then you have to really check it out. So one thing we noticed the other day, and I don't know if you had it down or not, but the Boss 429 hood scoop on it was installed, but it's further back on the hood than it was in the stock position.
Yeah, and it's we've set the engine back closer to the firewall than it would be in the car, the Boss 429 cars, And so all of a sudden, when you do that, you can say it, but then you got to keep in mind that hood scoop is going to have to move back too, but you can't run it back so far that the edge of the hood scoop falls off the hood. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
there's that. So we're a half an inch from the edge of the hood.
Okay.
And that's where the size of the hood's almost sort of, dictated where the engine was going to be. So you have to really plan ahead on this stuff. And you could find yourself with, a real problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even the tires, the wheels and tires that you have on there, as far as what you had, you stretched all the wheel wells, you widened all the fenders, both front and back, for the road race accommodations.
All quartered and radiused and built inside. They all have tubs. The rear, the back is tubbed and whatnot. The fronts are widened and we tried to do it such that you really don't notice when you first look and until you look at another one, a Mach 1, and you realize there's something about this one, and it's got a lot of flair in the front end and the back end.
Yeah, you've got the one of the things that I noticed on the car too, that we were kind of looking at the graphics and everything on the car. Now they're matched to the black powder coat of the wheels, and the stencils in the car were actually hand drawn. Huh?
Yep, that's right. It's the wheels are the color the wheels are when you buy them, and we wanted the black center. So okay, and black is another one of those colors that you can have 3 shades of black on the car, and they all look totally different. So when it came time to put the graphics on the car, we matched the black to the powder coat on the wheels, and then it's an exact match. And the stencils on the car were they never put this engine in this car, so I really wanted an SOHC 427 where the Boss 429 would have been on the or the Boss 302 would have been on the original car. So we bought the kit for the Boss 302. And we had a 0 and we had a 2 and an O, and the rest we sort of took. My wife Stephanie was actually the one that hand drew the stencil to actually put the paint on the car.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive. Great job.
Yeah, part of the team.
Yeah, part of the team.
Yeah.
Now obviously when you put this thing on the chassis, you had to cut the roof off it and everything else and drop it. Well, you just cut. You did the other way around. Instead of cutting the roof off, you cut the floor out and dropped it over the shell, right?
That's right. The bottom of the car got cut right out, and then when it was all the bodywork was it was obviously test fitted and whatnot, and then when everything was done, the chassis was all powder coated and assembled. We put the headliner in the body because we knew we'd never get it in after it went on the chassis. So
that's a good call.
Yeah. So the headliner went in the car. And then we lowered the body down onto the chassis, and it's bolted into place, and some seam sealer, and put the fenders on, and the hood and the deck lid.
And about how much time? Well, you said you got about 2 years. How many years in the build?
Dan. 10 years.
10 years. Okay, 10 years to build.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's tough. You have to keep pushing forward with these projects, and they can drag on you.
Yeah.
Nope.
What are the next plans for the car after this? After you get done showing, you going to use it a little bit now?
Oh yeah. Right now it's licensed and registered and street legal, and I think we'll wait for a nice day. We'll we'll drive it a bit and see how it is on the highway, and I think ultimately we'll maybe put some 3M clear on the car to protect it a little bit. It's that first rock chip that really hurts.
Oh, yeah. It's always the first. And after that, it's kind of gets a little easier.
And then after that, you're going, oh, well, I guess we'll just drive it.
Yeah, that isn't so bad.
Yeah. But it would be, I think ultimately it would be fun to put it on a road race track and, see what it'll do. Get it out there and run through the gears.
What if you do really good? Are you going to go out racing all the time?
No, you know what? My wife and I already go racing all the time. My wife runs a vintage 72 Volvo 142 in the vintage class, and we travel around North America, campaigning this. Yeah, it's fun. You got
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, vintage cars, vintage drivers. It's a lot of fun.
That is very cool.
Yep.
So what do you think about the show this weekend so far? Good response on the car?
Absolutely. And this is because the finals were here. this weekend, man, the quality of cars off the scale.
Oh, yeah.
And
Some really nice rides here.
And then for me, I've never been to Pittsburgh before. I've seen a bunch of cars I really like. A couple of Mach ones here. There's a really nice 69 Cyclone here that somebody brought. And so you see a lot of nice cars that, beyond even the finalist type cars. There's a lot of nice cars here.
Yeah, so as long as the Mustang. Now, you have a couple more cars in a stable too, right? This isn't your first build or not your first car that you built, right?
No, you know what? I'm at that age where I've been playing with cars for quite a few years, and you put so much work into them, and they're hard to build and sort out. Like, it's a lot of times it's easy to slap stuff together, but then to get it together and then to get it together and have it work. That's really the challenge. And then you've got so much time and you spent so much time with these cars, I can't part with them. So I just keep buying bigger storage, and that's the thing. Yeah. So I've got a Trans Am that I bought brand new when I was, 22 years old.
So what year was that?
Oh, that was 81. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Been a while.
And you still got it all?
Oh yeah, still got it. It's all original.
How many miles are on that?
I think it's on its third time around on the odometer, and I just, but it was my daily driver for 16 years,
Wow.
And but at one point I was looking at it, and it looks kind of sagged out, and I was thinking, I should maybe look at that. And the leaf springs are all broken, and so then I started working on it, and then that was my first project. It was the car I owned, and that's what started this whole thing, was going to car shows with my Trans Am.
So where does the Mustang hold in the stable? What is it, the favorite one, the second favorite, or where you at?
The Mustang, I haven't driven it yet, so I don't know what that's like at all. The Trans Am was my first car there that was, decent at all. And so that'd be the last one to go. But I have a 71 CUDA that I bought when I turned 50. And people talked about midlife crisis, and I thought, I need to cash in on that midlife crisis thing. So I'm going to go buy a CUDA, and I shopped around for one. I bought one in Cleveland, Ohio. Flew down to Cleveland, took a look at this car, and it was there had been a crash in the stock market at that point, and this kind of stuff where people were just bailing out of this stuff. And I was fortunate enough to find this car. All the body work had been done. It had been painted. It looked great. It just really didn't run. And, again, in life, a car that really doesn't run, you can't ask a ton of money for.
Yeah.
And so
you probably picked it up for a song and dance.
Well, I picked it up for good, reasonable price, and then brought it home and, replaced the driveline basically, ultimately. But, it was a lot of fun. And that car, I tell people when I show it, no, this is not a muscle car. This is a time machine. And I tell them that it's because when I'm in this thing, I am 19 years old again.
That's good.
And it's awesome.
Well, that's good. And it sounds like you get a good supportive, is it better half or second half at home there? She's sitting there watching you right now.
Oh, yeah.
She supports your crazy dreams.
Can't do it without her,
There you go.
like same with vintage auto racing. We're a team on this. And, I like the show car stuff. I like drag racing. Stephanie likes road course racing, and we try and do it all.
That is very cool.
Yep.
Well, very, very cool. Well, thank you very much for stepping over here and talking with me this afternoon about the car.
I was happy to do it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the show, and hope we see you again sometime.
You bet.
All right, thanks a lot.
Bye now.
So many people have you talked about the car so far? With 1 million?
Oh, at least.
At least.
And then, they all have their own Mustang story, and, they're all great.
Oh, yeah.
And that's part of the fun, is that you get to hear everybody's Mustang story.